Montaigne on misdirected passion. Have you ever had one of those days when everything just seems to go wrong? Your boss calls you in for a meeting and it's not good. You burn your tongue on hot coffee. You forget your umbrella and get drenched in a downpour. And to top it off, you feel a cold coming on. So when you get home that evening, you snap at your partner over something trivial, leaving them confused and hurt. It's as if the weight of the world came crashing down on you and all of it was directed at the person closest to you. Michel de Montaigne, the French philosopher, understood exactly what was happening. He believed that humans are incredibly passionate creatures and that our feelings need an outlet. The problem occurs when we're unable to express these emotions properly, and so they get misdirected. You might be frustrated with your boss or overwhelmed by the events of the day, but instead of addressing those emotions directly, you take it out on your spouse or loved one. Montaigne pointed out that this happens because we need to direct our feelings towards something. Anger, love, fear, they all require action. If we feel anger, we want to lash out, and if we feel love, we want to care and nurture. But when we don't have a clear outlet for those feelings, we deceive ourselves and create false targets for our emotions. For example, when we're angry with someone, we may end up slamming the door or punching the wall. But it's not the door or the wall's fault. In modern psychology, this is called displacement. It's when we redirect our emotions towards a different, often unrelated target. Think about it. You might shout at your partner or friend, but the root cause of your frustration might be something completely unrelated, like work stress. This misdirection of emotions can cause unnecessary damage to relationships and hurt the people closest to us. Montaigne's advice here is simple yet profound. Stop, recognize what's really bothering you, and don't let your emotions spill over onto those you love. Next time you feel yourself getting angry or upset, ask yourself, is this really about the person in front of me, or is it something else that I'm misdirecting my passion towards? This awareness can help prevent unnecessary conflict and lead to healthier, more honest relationships. The more we understand our emotions, the better we can control them, and the more we can act in a way that benefits our well-being and those around us. De Grouchy on loving parents. Have you ever paused to consider how much your parents or caregivers shaped who you are today? Sophie de Grouchy, an 18th-century French philosopher, explored this idea and concluded that everything in life comes back to our parents. They are our first teachers, showing us the way to navigate the world and teaching us how to behave, love, and care for others. In fact, the love and support we receive in our earliest years form the foundation of our moral outlook. De Grouchy believed that from the moment we are born, we are inherently dependent on others. This dependency is not just physical, it's emotional too. As babies, we rely entirely on our caregivers for love, support, and guidance. Whether it's a parent, a nurse, or another caregiver, the first bonds we form teach us how to be human. These early interactions influence how we interact with others throughout our lives. The philosopher argued that this early love creates the moral foundation for who we become. When we experience kindness, support, and compassion as children, we are more likely to extend that same kindness to others as we grow. De Grouchy's insight mirrors modern psychology, which has shown that our ability to feel empathy and show kindness is largely shaped by our earliest relationships. Think about it. How often do we feel a deep connection to someone simply because they were there for us when we needed them most? That connection is powerful. It drives us to be more compassionate, to care for others, and to offer support when others are in need. The love we receive from our parents, caregivers, or early role models is like a blueprint for how we approach relationships in adulthood. De Grouchy's philosophy encourages us to rethink how we care for the next generation. If we want to build a kinder, more empathetic world, we must prioritize fostering strong, loving relationships in the early years. As parents, teachers, and caregivers, the way we treat children shapes the society we will have tomorrow. The more love we give, the more love we receive in return. It's a cycle that continues to grow and strengthen throughout life. Murdoch on seeing the best in people. Have you ever met someone and found yourself immediately judging them based on past experiences or assumptions? It's easy to fall into the trap of attaching negative labels to people without really getting to know them. We all have unconscious biases, memories of past encounters, thoughts, or feelings that influence how we view others. But what if you could take a step back and see the best in people beyond the judgments or biases? This is the core idea behind Iris Murdoch's philosophy of attention. Murdoch, a British writer and philosopher, emphasized the importance of seeing others as they truly are rather than through the lens of our own biases or preconceived notions. She believed that attention was a moral ability that allowed us to truly engage with others, not by seeing them through the filter of our own desires, but by recognizing their full complexity and humanity. Murdoch encouraged us to look at others with compassion, to see them in their entirety, and to focus on their positive qualities. This kind of unselfing, as she called it, means putting aside our ego, our judgments, and our preconceived ideas about someone. Instead, we give them our full, undivided attention. When we do this, we create space for love, kindness, and understanding. It's not always easy to do. We all carry baggage, memories of people who hurt us, judgments we've formed over time, but Murdoch's advice challenges us to rise above this. The next time you meet someone, try to practice attention. Look at them without bias, see the best in them, and appreciate them for who they are in that moment. You might be surprised at how your relationships improve. This practice doesn't just change how we view others, it changes how we view ourselves too. When we learn to attend to others with kindness and empathy, we open ourselves up to a world of deeper connections and more meaningful relationships. Weber on burning the midnight oil. Do you ever find yourself working late into the night, feeling guilty for leaving work early, or stressing over the emails you haven't responded to yet? In today's world, it seems like everyone is constantly striving to do more, achieve more, and never stop working. But why do we feel this constant pressure to burn the midnight oil? Max Weber, a German sociologist, might have some answers. In his famous work, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, Weber explored the connection between Protestantism and the rise of capitalism. He argued that Protestant beliefs, especially those of Calvinism, helped foster the work ethic that underpins much of our modern capitalist society. According to Weber, Protestantism taught people that work was not just a worldly activity. It was a sacred duty. Hard work became a sign of being elect or chosen by God. And as a result, people viewed their jobs as a form of spiritual devotion. But this mindset didn't just help create wealth, it also created a culture where overwork became glorified. Weber pointed out that this Protestant work ethic made it fashionable to work tirelessly, even to the point of exhaustion. It became a badge of honor to work late, to sacrifice personal time for productivity, and to constantly strive for success. Does this sound familiar? We live in a world where busy is a badge of honor. We feel guilty for taking breaks or leaving work at a reasonable hour. But Weber's theory reminds us that this obsession with work is not natural. It's a mindset we've been conditioned to embrace. So, the next time you feel guilty for stepping away from your work, remember that it's okay to take time for yourself. Success is not defined by how much time you spend working. It's about finding balance and understanding that rest is just as important as productivity. We can redefine our worth without letting work consume us. Dubois on double consciousness. Imagine walking through a crowd, feeling excited and confident about who you are, only to be faced with rejection or prejudice because of the color of your skin. This was the reality for many African Americans during the Jim Crow era, and it's a concept that the sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois described as double consciousness. Du Bois coined the term in his 1903 book, The Souls of Black Folk. He explained that black people in America were forced to see themselves through two lenses, one through their own perspective and identity, and the other through the eyes of a society that dehumanized and oppressed them. This double consciousness created an internal conflict as African Americans struggled to reconcile their sense of self with the way society viewed them. Dubois argued that this split identity was both a source of strength and a source of pain. On one hand, it gave Black people a unique understanding of the world around them, a perspective that allowed them to see the injustices and contradictions within society. On the other hand, it created a constant tension as they were torn between their own identity and society's expectations. Today, Dubois' concept of double consciousness continues to resonate. It serves as a reminder that identity is never fixed, it is shaped by how we see ourselves and how others see us. This dual perspective can create existential challenges, but it also offers opportunities for growth and transformation. Dubois theory challenges us to reflect on how we define ourselves and how society's views influence our self-perception. It's a call for empathy and awareness of the complex identities that others may carry, identities shaped by their experiences, struggles, and society's treatment of them. Understanding and embracing these complexities is key to building a more compassionate and inclusive world. Wollstonecraft on first-wave feminism. Imagine a society where half of its population is denied the basic rights to vote, own property, and access education. A society where women are confined to the home, their voices drowned by the weight of tradition and legal inequality. This was the reality of the 18th century, and it was exactly what Mary Wollstonecraft, one of the most influential philosophers of early feminism, was fighting against. Wollstonecraft argued that a society cannot thrive when half of its members are held back from contributing their full potential. She believed that if women were given the same opportunities as men, be it in education, legal rights, or political participation, they would rise to the occasion, proving themselves as capable and virtuous as their male counterparts. She famously said, "Let woman share the rights, and she will emulate the virtues of man." It may seem like a simple idea today, but in her time, this was revolutionary. Wollstonecraft's call for equality wasn't just for women to gain the right to vote or inherit property, it was about empowering women to participate fully in society's growth. She knew that a system that kept women in ignorance and servitude wasn't just unfair, it was inefficient. Think of it like running a race with one leg or trying to catch a ball with one hand tied behind your back. It doesn't make sense, right? Wollstonecraft's argument might sound a little male-centric by today's standards, but remember, she was writing to an audience that was predominantly male. Her careful use of logic and reason was designed to avoid the stereotype of the hysterical woman, a stereotype that was often used to dismiss women's voices. Her point was simple: society as a whole suffers when the talents and intellect of women are ignored or stifled. If we limit women, we limit ourselves. Who knows what breakthroughs or innovations the world has missed because women weren't given the education or opportunities they deserved. Wollstonecraft's legacy continues to inspire feminist movements today. First-wave feminism laid the groundwork for women's legal rights, but the fight for equality is far from over. As we continue to break down societal barriers, Wollstonecraft's call for equal opportunity remains a powerful reminder of the progress we still need to make. Marx on the class struggle. Picture this: a group of powerful people at the top of society, with control over all the wealth and resources, while the rest of the population struggles to make ends meet. This divide isn't just about money, it's about power, exploitation, and the very system that keeps people in their place. Sound familiar? Karl Marx, one of the most influential thinkers of the 19th century, argued that this was the reality of capitalist societies. Marx's theory of class struggle is built on the idea that society is divided into two primary classes: the bourgeoisie, the ruling class, including factory owners, bankers, and the wealthy elite, and the proletariat, the working class. The bourgeoisie controls the means of production, factories, land, and capital, while the proletariat provides the labor that keeps everything running. However, the two classes have fundamentally different goals. The bourgeoisie seeks profit, efficiency, and control, while the proletariat seeks better working conditions, fair wages, and more equitable treatment. This fundamental clash of interests, Marx argued, is the root of the class struggle. It's not just a physical fight, though it can manifest in riots and revolutions, but a struggle of ideas and values. The bourgeoisie views people as commodities to be bought and sold for profit, while the proletariat strives for a society where human dignity and the value of work are respected. Marx believed that capitalism had replaced the personal relationships of feudal society with cold, impersonal transactions. He saw the factory system as dehumanizing, turning workers into mere cogs in a machine, while the wealthy elite reaped the benefits. The struggle for Marx wasn't just about economics. It was about reclaiming humanity from the grip of profit-driven exploitation. If workers could unite and recognize their collective power, Marx argued, they could overthrow the capitalist system and create a fairer society. A society where people, not profit, are the priority. It's a struggle between consumerism and community, between corporations and people, between human resources and human dignity. It's a fight for the very soul of society. Marx's ideas continue to resonate today, especially in a world where the gap between the rich and poor continues to widen. The class struggle, while it may have evolved, is far from over. In a world where profits seem to come before people, it's worth asking, what side are you on? Confucius on belonging. Have you ever experienced that deep sense of belonging, where everything just feels right? Whether it's with family, friends, or your community, belonging is a powerful feeling that brings us closer to others and to our purpose in life. Confucius, the ancient Chinese philosopher, understood the importance of belonging and the role it plays in shaping our identity. At the heart of Confucianism is the concept of li, which can be translated as proper conduct or ritual. Li is about understanding your place in society and acting accordingly. It's about fulfilling your duties to your family, friends, and community with respect, humility, and kindness. Confucius believed that humans are inherently social beings, and our identity is shaped by our relationships with others. The me only makes sense when combined with the daughter, the friend, or the father. In Confucian philosophy, the individual is not seen in isolation, but as part of a larger, interconnected system. Li governs how we interact with others, how we show respect, and how we contribute to the greater good. Think of it like being a part of a choir. Each person has a role, and together we create harmony. When we act in accordance with Li, we play our part in the larger social and cosmic order. This sense of belonging and interconnectedness is something that's not just limited to Eastern philosophies. We can all relate to the feeling of pride and joy when we do something for others, whether it's helping a friend, volunteering in our community, or supporting a cause we care about. These actions bring us closer to others and help us understand our place in the world. When we embrace Li, we find fulfillment in our roles, and we contribute to the well-being of those around us. We realize that we are part of something greater, and that sense of belonging is what gives our lives meaning and purpose. Hegel on Weltgeist. Have you ever wondered how everything in life is connected? How each action, event, or person is part of a larger story? G.W.F. Hegel, a German philosopher, introduced the concept of Weltgeist, the world spirit, which emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things. To truly understand anything, Hegel argued, we need to see it within its context as part of a larger, evolving narrative. For Hegel, nothing exists in isolation. Every person, object, or idea is defined by its relationship to everything else. To understand the significance of any single thing, we must trace its development through history, seeing how it's influenced by and contributes to the unfolding of the world spirit. This dynamic, ever-evolving force pushes society and humanity toward progress. Imagine the story of a book. To fully understand its meaning, we must consider not just the author, but the historical context, the printing press that made it possible, the publisher that distributed it, and the readers who brought it to life. Every aspect of the book's existence is part of a larger web, a story that stretches across time. In the same way, every individual life is part of a broader historical and social context. Hegel's idea of Weltgeist challenges us to see ourselves not as isolated individuals, but as interconnected with everyone else. Our actions, thoughts, and experiences are part of a larger, unfolding narrative that transcends our own lives. The more we understand our place within this grand story, the more we can contribute to the progress and growth of society. In today's world, this idea invites us to recognize our shared humanity and the connections that bind us all together. We're all part of a larger movement constantly evolving and progressing toward a more just and equitable world. Appia on cosmopolitanism. What does it mean to be part of a global community? The word cosmopolitan has become controversial in recent years, with some viewing it as a hopeful vision for a united world, while others see it as a threat to cultural diversity. But for philosopher Kwame Anthony Appiah, cosmopolitanism is about finding a balance between universal moral responsibility and the celebration of diversity. Appiah defines cosmopolitanism through two key ideas. 1. Moral responsibility. Every person, regardless of where they are from, has moral value. We all have a duty to one another, no matter how distant or small that responsibility might seem. 2. Respect for difference. While we have a duty to all people, our individual cultures and identities are still important. Difference matters because it's tied to our sense of self and our connection to others. Appiah's cosmopolitanism isn't about erasing differences or creating a uniform global society. Instead, it's about celebrating diversity while recognizing our shared moral responsibilities. We can be proud of our unique identities, whether national, cultural, or personal, while still acknowledging our obligation to treat all people with dignity and respect. The idea of cosmopolitanism challenges us to look beyond our own narrow identities and find common ground with others. It's about seeing the humanity in people from all walks of life, regardless of their background, and working together to create a better world. In today's globalized world, where borders are increasingly blurred and interconnectedness is more apparent than ever, Appiah's cosmopolitanism offers a way forward. It's not about abandoning our differences, but about embracing them while recognizing that we are all part of the same human family. Burke on manners mocketh. We often take manners for granted, right? Saying thank you when someone holds the door open, offering your seat to an elderly person on the bus, or holding back from swearing in front of kids. These are actions we might consider routine or even a bit boring. But Edmund Burke, the 18th century Irish philosopher and statesman, saw things differently. For Burke, manners weren't just about being polite, they were crucial to the functioning of society itself. Burke argued that manners were more important than laws. Manners are of more importance than laws, he famously said. Upon them the laws depend. Think about it. Manners are the unwritten codes that help us cooperate with one another. They govern our interactions, from the simple act of shaking hands to the more significant decisions we make in politics or business. In Burke's view, manners were the true glue that held society together. Why did he see manners as so essential? The reason is simple. Laws may be formal, but manners are what govern our day-to-day lives. Manners give us the responsibility to act according to our values, to make decisions based on our shared sense of right and wrong. For instance, it's not a law that we should hold the door open for someone, but we do it because it reflects a shared social value: kindness. If manners were reduced to mere laws, they'd lose their moral significance. Burke's idea extends beyond simple politeness. He believed that manners played a crucial role in keeping political powers in check. When societies lose their sense of shared values and norms, what Burke referred to as manners, democracy and liberty are in danger. He saw that manners were a safeguard against authoritarianism and tyranny, ensuring that the rulers remained accountable to the people. This idea was revisited in the 2018 book How Democracies Die by Daniel Ziblatt and Stephen Levitsky. They argue that the loss of key democratic norms or manners, like respect for political opposition or self-restraint and power, can lead to the erosion of democracy itself. In today's world, where we often prioritize legal solutions and contracts over common sense, Burke's message rings true. Manners may seem trivial, but they form the backbone of a functioning society. What are your thoughts? Do you think we've lost touch with these unwritten norms? Arendt on the banality of evil. In 1961, the world was shocked when Adolf Eichmann, one of the key figures responsible for organizing the Holocaust, stood trial in Jerusalem. Eichmann had overseen the deportation of Jews to concentration camps, a role that directly contributed to the genocide of millions. But when he was put on trial, the world didn't see a villainous monster. What they saw was a mundane, bureaucratic official who seemed unremarkable, even dull. This strange and unsettling reality led philosopher Hannah Arendt to coin the term the banality of evil to describe Eichmann and others like him. Arendt, a German Jewish philosopher, had fled Nazi Germany and was deeply affected by Eichmann's trial. What she discovered wasn't just the evil of one man, but a disturbing pattern that could be found in totalitarian regimes everywhere. Arendt argued that evil doesn't always appear as something monstrous or malevolent. Often, it shows up as ordinary people like Eichmann who are just doing their jobs without questioning the system they serve. Eichmann didn't see himself as a villain. He believed he was simply following orders and fulfilling his duties. His blind obedience to authority, coupled with a lack of self-reflection, allowed him to participate in atrocities without feeling any moral responsibility. Arendt's idea goes deeper. She believed that totalitarianism is built on two key elements: the destruction of human connections, where authority controls all social bonds, and the creation of fear by an external enemy. In such a climate, people like Eichmann lose their sense of personal agency and become cogs in the machine, focused only on fulfilling their roles without questioning the moral implications. For Arendt, a fully realized life should involve three essential elements: labor, routine tasks, work, creating something of value, and action, engaging with others to give meaning to life. Totalitarian regimes, however, strip away access to action, leaving individuals to merely labor and work without any sense of self or purpose. Eichmann was a product of the system, a person reduced to his function, devoid of any deeper moral engagement. The lesson here is profound. Evil doesn't always come from monstrous individuals, but from ordinary people who fail to question authority and become passive participants in harmful systems. This serves as a powerful reminder that we all have a responsibility to critically examine our actions, especially in the face of authority and systemic injustice. How often do we mindlessly follow orders without considering their moral impact? Al-Kindi on first causes. Have you ever wondered where everything comes from? Why does anything exist at all? This is the big question that the philosopher Al-Kindi, a 9th-century Islamic scholar, tried to answer. He's best known for presenting the cosmological argument, which proposes that everything must have a cause, and ultimately there must be a first cause that set everything into motion. Al-Kindi's argument is simple. 1. Everything that exists has a cause. 2. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe must have a cause, a creator, or a first mover. Think about it. We don't believe that things can just pop into existence for no reason. The human mind is uncomfortable with the idea of an event happening without an explanation. We naturally search for a cause, a reason, a story. This is where Al-Kindi's argument comes in. If everything we see has a cause, then the universe itself must have one too. Modern philosophers, such as William Lane Craig, have taken this argument further. Craig points to the Big Bang theory as evidence that the universe had a definite beginning. The Big Bang, he argues, was the universe's began-to-exist moment. And since things that begin to exist must have a cause, This implies the need for a creator or first cause. Some critics of this argument argue that the universe might be eternal or that the chain of causes could go back infinitely. But Craig counters this with a thought experiment called Hilbert's Hotel. Imagine a hotel with an infinite number of rooms, all occupied by guests. What happens when a new guest arrives? The paradox is that even with infinity, we can still make room for the new guest. This shows that an infinite regress of causes is logically incoherent. In short, Al-Kindi's cosmological argument suggests that the universe must have a cause. Whether we call this cause God or something else is up for debate, but the need for a first cause is something we can't easily dismiss. What do you think? Does the idea of a first cause make sense to you? Could the universe really have just begun from nothing? Freud on the Holy Father. Ever feel like there's something inside you, a part that's still vulnerable and scared, even as an adult? For Sigmund Freud, this feeling of helplessness is the root of why humans create the figure of a father, or in the case of religion, God. Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, believed that humans have a deep-seated need for a protective figure, someone to guide us through life's uncertainties and fears. Freud argued that as children, we turn to our father or a protective figure to help us navigate the world. But as we grow older, we realize that our fathers or any protectors are just as fallible as we are. Yet, the need for protection doesn't disappear. This is where the concept of God comes in. Freud believed that religion was essentially humanity's way of projecting our desire for a powerful, all-knowing protector onto the universe. Just as children look to their fathers for security, humans look to God for the same assurance. In Freud's view, religion serves as a psychological bomb. It gives us a sense of control over an unpredictable world. Religion provides us with a comforting illusion that someone or something is in charge, that suffering has meaning, and that there is a reward for good deeds after death. In other words, religion is the ultimate wish fulfillment. But Freud also warned that this need for security could be problematic. Religion, for him, was a crutch, a way of coping with our fears and uncertainties. We create an idealized father figure to take the place of the actual, imperfect figures in our lives. This gives us comfort, but it also prevents us from confronting the harsh realities of life and our own weaknesses. Freud didn't aim to disprove the existence of God. Rather, he wanted to explore why we cling to the idea of God so tightly. Is religion a form of psychological self-soothing, a way to cope with the fear of the unknown? What do you think? Do we create God in our image to ease our anxieties? Paley on the Watchmaker. Imagine you're walking through the woods and you stumble upon something odd, a perfect, intricately crafted watch made from branches and leaves. What do you think? Do you assume it's the result of chance, or do you see the hand of a skilled designer behind its creation? This is the essence of William Paley's famous argument for the existence of God, the teleological argument. In his 18th century work, Natural Theology, Paley used the analogy of finding a watch on the heath to illustrate his point. If you found a watch in the woods, you wouldn't assume it was a product of chance. You'd naturally conclude that someone had designed it. The complexity and functionality of the watch demand a designer. Paley extended this reasoning to the universe. Just like the watch, the universe is full of complexity and design. From the gravitational pull of the planets to the intricate systems in our bodies, everything seems too perfectly arranged to have come about by mere chance. It's as if the universe is a finely tuned machine. If a watch needs a designer, why wouldn't the universe? Paley's teleological argument is based on the idea of abductive reasoning, which means that the simplest explanation is often the best. The complexity of the universe requires an intelligent designer God. But of course, this argument has been debated for centuries. Critics argue that natural processes like evolution can explain the complexity we see in nature. Yet, Paley's argument still holds weight for many. If design implies a designer, then surely the universe, with all its intricate systems, must have a designer too. What do you think? Does the universe show signs of intelligent design? Or could it all be the result of chance? Marx on drugging the people. Think back to when you were a child. If you were upset or in pain, someone would probably distract you. Look at that shiny thing. It's a classic tactic, right? But are we really so different as adults? Karl Marx believed that, in many ways, we're still distracted in a similar manner, especially when it comes to religion. He argued that religion functions like a powerful drug, numbing the working class to their suffering and keeping them complacent in their misery. Marx believed that religion served as a tool for the ruling classes, the bourgeoisie, to maintain their power over the proletariat, the working class. How? First, religion promises an eternal reward in heaven for the meek, obedient, and mild. It tells people to endure their hardships because, in the end, they'll be rewarded in the afterlife. But there's a catch. Religion also threatens hell for those who rebel, question authority, or resist oppression. So, in a sense, it keeps people in their place both by offering the carrot of heaven and the stick of damnation. Second, Marx saw religion as a kind of opium for the people. It dulls the pain of the proletariat, making them more willing to accept their miserable lot in life. Rather than focusing on changing the world, religion keeps them occupied with rituals, prayers, and promises of an afterlife. But this distraction prevents them from seeing the injustices of the present. Why, Marx asks, would you accept the suffering of life now when you can hope for a better, more blissful existence in heaven? Although Marx wasn't as harsh on religion as some of his followers like Lenin, he still saw it as a major obstacle to societal change. If people stopped believing in the illusions of divine justice and eternal rewards, Marx argued, they could focus on improving their material conditions in the here and now. Religion provides solace, purpose, and community for millions of people. But Marx's question is, at what cost? If religion stops you from questioning the status quo or fighting for a better world, isn't it a tool of oppression? What do you think? Does religion help or hinder progress? Berkeley on unseen things. Ever heard the question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? It's a classic thought experiment, but it raises an important question. Can we really say anything exists outside of our own experience? This is the core of George Berkeley's philosophy, known as idealism. Berkeley, an 18th-century Irish philosopher, challenges us to think about the very nature of reality itself. Berkeley's big idea is simple. The only things that truly exist are those things we can perceive. In other words, we can't prove that anything exists outside of our mind. Everything is dependent on our perception of it. You might look at a tree, touch it, smell it, and hear the rustle of its leaves, but Berkeley would argue that these are all just perceptions in your mind. The tree itself doesn't exist independently of your experience of it. It's not enough to say, look, I can touch the tree, so it exists. Berkeley would argue that all you've proven is that you're having a perception of a tree. But can you prove the tree exists outside of your perception? Berkeley takes this even further with a clever argument called the master argument. He asks us to imagine an object, something we've never experienced, something completely unknown to us. Can you conceive of it in your mind? Probably not, because our knowledge is limited to what we've already experienced. If you try to imagine a tree that you've never seen or touched, you're likely going to use the experiences you already have to fill in the gaps. This is Berkeley's point. We can't even imagine something we haven't experienced. The universe, therefore, is a collection of perceptions in our minds. This is idealism, the view that reality consists entirely of ideas. There is no independent external matter, there are only the ideas we experience. So, the next time someone argues that objects exist outside of our minds, ask them, can you truly imagine an object that you've never experienced? Berkeley believed that the world only exists because we perceive it. Do you agree? Can something exist if no one is there to perceive it? Hume on miracles. Imagine your friend tells you they've just seen a ghost. Do you listen intently and nod, agreeing that perhaps something supernatural occurred? Or do you raise an eyebrow and ask for a more reasonable explanation? David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, would likely take the latter approach, especially when it comes to miracles. In his famous essay of Miracles 1748, Hume argued that miracles, by definition, are violations of natural laws. Whether it's someone rising from the dead walking, or a broomstick flying through the air, these events contradict everything we know about the natural world. Hume's position was straightforward. If we're presented with a claim of a miracle, we should always be more inclined to reject it as mistaken rather than to accept it as proof that the laws of nature have been violated. Why? Because the laws of nature, such as gravity, the law of conservation of energy, and others are based on centuries of observation and experience. They're supported by scientific evidence and are confirmed by the observations of millions of people every day. So, when someone claims to have witnessed a miracle, they're presenting an isolated event that contradicts everything we know about the world. The odds of this isolated event being true are incredibly low, especially when stacked up against the overwhelming evidence of the regularity of natural laws. Hume's argument is about probabilities. When we hear about a miracle, we have two options. Either we can accept it and overturn the entire system of understanding the world, or we can look for a more plausible explanation. Hume argues that it's far more likely that the witness is mistaken, misperceiving something, or influenced by personal bias. So, the next time someone tells you about a miraculous event, you'll have a choice. Do you accept the extraordinary claim without question, or do you ask for more evidence, weighing it against the vast body of knowledge we have about the world? What do you think? Can miracles really happen, or do they just challenge the principles of reason? Spinoza on How We're All God. Have you ever felt a deep sense of connection with the world around you? Imagine that everything, from the smallest pebble to the farthest star, is part of a grand, interconnected whole. This is the core idea of Baruch Spinoza's philosophy of monism. Spinoza, a 17th-century Dutch philosopher, believed that everything in the universe is part of a single substance, and this substance is what he called God or nature. Unlike Descartes, who divided the world into mind, matter, and God, Spinoza argued that all things are expressions of the same underlying substance. Our thoughts, our bodies, the stars, the oceans, everything is a mode or manifestation of this one, unified substance. This idea challenges the traditional view of God as separate from the world. Instead, for Spinoza, God is not a personal, transcendent being, but the very essence of existence itself. Spinoza's monism suggests that we are all part of a larger cosmic order. Our thoughts, feelings, and actions are not isolated, but are connected to the universe's fundamental substance. Just like a drop of water is part of the ocean, our existence is intertwined with everything else in the cosmos. This perspective offers a sense of unity and interconnectedness that transcends the individual ego. For Spinoza, understanding the unity of all things is the key to intellectual and spiritual fulfillment. The more we reflect on the universe and our place in it, the closer we come to understanding the divine. This intellectual love of nature, Spinoza believed, was the highest form of human happiness. By recognizing the interconnectedness of everything, we can transcend our narrow, self-centered view of the world and embrace the totality of existence. Spinoza's ideas are not just philosophical musings. They offer a profound way of understanding our place in the universe. Do you feel connected to everything around you? How might your perspective shift if you saw yourself as part of a greater whole, a single substance that binds the universe together? Zen Buddhism on the koan. Have you ever heard a riddle that made you stop in your tracks, confused yet intrigued, wondering if there's more to it than meets the eye? Zen Buddhism uses a method known as the koan, a type of paradoxical riddle or statement designed to push your mind beyond conventional thinking. One famous koan goes like this: "What is your original face before your parents were born?" This simple statement packs a profound challenge. The koan isn't meant to be solved in the traditional sense. Instead, it encourages you to transcend the limits of logical thought and conventional understanding. In Zen Buddhism, the goal is not just to get the answer, but to experience a shift in consciousness, to see beyond the ordinary into a deeper truth. Koans force us to grapple with the nature of reality itself. They break apart the habitual ways of thinking, where we rely on logic, reason, and categorization. By presenting something paradoxical, something that cannot be understood through the usual methods, the koan invites us to experience a moment of realization, a glimpse of enlightenment. In many ways, koans teach us that life is not about finding simple answers, but about embracing the mystery. By allowing ourselves to sit with uncertainty, we can experience a profound shift in perspective. The koan teaches us that the mind can go beyond logic, beyond reason, and touch something deeper. The next time you encounter a paradox or a challenge that doesn't seem to have a straightforward answer, try thinking of it like a koan. Instead of seeking a quick resolution, let it wash over you. Sit with it. The answer may not come right away, but in the process of reflection, you may discover something far more meaningful than you expected. How do you respond when faced with the unknown? Do you embrace it, or do you seek to control it? Campbell on every story ever. Think about the last epic story you watched, read, or heard. Was it a fantasy film like The Lord of the Rings, where a hero leaves home, faces dangerous quests, and returns transformed? Or perhaps it was a religious tale like the journey of Moses or Jesus, who lead their people after a profound personal journey. Joseph Campbell, an American literature professor, argued that all of these stories, whether ancient myths or modern blockbusters, follow a similar pattern. Campbell's famous work The Hero with 1,000 Faces, 1949, explored the structure of storytelling across cultures and centuries, revealing a universal blueprint that exists in the myths of nearly every culture. This blueprint consists of three main stages: separation, initiation, and return. The first stage, separation, is when the hero receives a call to adventure, something that pulls them away from their familiar, everyday life. It could be a wizard calling them to save the world, like in Harry Potter, or the tragic event that launches a hero's journey, like the death of Luke Skywalker's aunt and uncle. This is the moment when something shakes up the status quo, forcing the hero to leave their comfort zone and step into the unknown. Next comes initiation, the hero's road of trials. This is the most intense part of the journey, where the hero faces danger, battles temptation, and learns life-changing lessons. Whether it's Frodo fighting off Gollum, Simba discovering his true identity, or Buddha's enlightenment under the tree, the hero grows in wisdom and strength. These trials transform the hero into someone capable of facing the greatest challenges. Finally, the return is when the hero comes back to their community, wiser and stronger, ready to lead or impart the lessons learned. This is the moment of fulfillment, the happily ever after that wraps up the journey. In myth, this stage is often marked by the hero returning as a king, prophet, or wise leader, holding the knowledge and power to make their community thrive. Campbell's theory teaches us that these stories aren't just about entertainment, they reflect the universal human experience. Every journey we take, whether small or large, follows a version of this structure. We all must face challenges, grow through them, and return to our lives transformed. What challenges are you facing right now? How could they be the trials of your own hero's journey? Huxley on the Brave New World. Imagine living in a world where there's no pain, no suffering, and no struggle. A society where people don't have to worry about work, relationships, or the heavy burdens of life. In Brave New World, 1932, Aldous Huxley painted just such a society, one that's so sanitized and perfected that it's almost terrifying. In Huxley's dystopian vision, everything is controlled to maintain happiness and stability. If people ever feel upset, they can take a drug called soma to calm their nerves. It's a powerful, morphine-like substance that provides an immediate escape from reality. But it's not just the drug that keeps people docile. Huxley's world is one of consumerism, easy pleasures, and distractions. Sex is casual, love and loyalty are discouraged, and meaningful relationships are forbidden. Life is one big, pleasant distraction. The society in Brave New World is designed to make people happy, but it's also hollow. People are conditioned to enjoy only what's deemed acceptable by the state. Books are banned, emotions are kept in check, and individuality is sacrificed for the sake of uniformity and control. The world may seem safe and comfortable, but at what cost? Huxley's warnings are strikingly relevant today. With the rise of smartphones, social media, and pharmaceutical treatments for everything from anxiety to depression, we're constantly distracted and numbed. We're bombarded with entertainment, convenience, and easy pleasures, all designed to keep us from facing the harder truths about life. Social inequality, injustice, and the environmental crisis. But what happens when we're so distracted by our gadgets and comfort that we lose sight of what truly matters? Huxley's Brave New World forces us to confront the consequences of living in a society that prioritizes pleasure and ease over struggle and growth. Which world would you choose? One of struggle, pain, and achievement, or one of comfort, distraction, and conformity? Beckett on Waiting Around. Have you ever found yourself waiting for something? An appointment, a call, a life change, and just filling the time with random thoughts and distractions? What do you do when time seems to stand still and there's nothing to do but wait? This is the heart of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, 1953, a play that explores the absurdity of life and the human condition through two characters who wait endlessly for someone named Godot who never arrives. The play's protagonists, Vladimir and Estragon, pass the time in a barren landscape hoping for Godot to show up and give their lives meaning. But Godot never comes. Instead, the characters engage in trivial conversations, make absurd decisions, and fall into a cyclical pattern of waiting. They question their existence, but they never take action. This waiting, this sense of being stuck in limbo, is a metaphor for life itself. Beckett's Waiting for Godot reflects the existential idea that life is filled with meaningless repetition and absurdity. The characters wrestle with doubt, purpose, and time itself, yet they never move forward. The play suggests that the human condition is defined by waiting for something, a future, an event, a revelation that might never come. In many ways, we all experience our own personal waiting for Godot. We wait for success, for love, for a change of direction in life, or even for death. We fill the time with distractions, yet the sense of waiting lingers and the deeper questions about meaning and purpose remain unanswered. So, what are you waiting for in your life? Are you living fully in the present, or are you, like Vladimir and Estragon, passing the time until something else happens? Orwell on doublethink. Have you ever found yourself believing two contradictory things at the same time, or maybe just accepting something that doesn't make sense because that's what society tells you to believe? George Orwell's 1984-1949 coined the term doublethink to describe the phenomenon of holding two opposing beliefs simultaneously, a central concept in his dystopian vision of a totalitarian society. In Orwell's novel, the government of Oceania is controlled by the party led by the figurehead Big Brother. The party manipulates reality itself through the concept of doublethink, teaching citizens to accept contradictory beliefs without question. For example, citizens are told that war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. The party rewrites history and controls the flow of information to maintain its power, ensuring that no one ever questions the truth. Doublethink is more than just hypocrisy, it's a tool of control. By making people believe in two contradictory ideas at once, the party eliminates any possibility of rebellion or independent thought. Citizens are unable to trust their own perceptions or reason because the party controls the very definition of truth. Orwell's concept of doublethink has never been more relevant. In today's world, where fake news and political spin are common, it's easy to see how truth can be manipulated. We're bombarded with conflicting messages, and sometimes we're encouraged to believe things that don't make sense. The result? A fractured reality where nothing is certain and truth becomes malleable. Are we living in a world of doublethink today? Are we willing to accept contradictions for the sake of convenience or control? Orwell's warning is clear. If we lose sight of objective truth, we risk being manipulated into believing anything, no matter how absurd. Kafka on alienation. Have you ever had that feeling like you're a stranger in your own life? A sense of disconnect, like everything around you is happening in a way you can't understand? This is the theme of Franz Kafka's novel The Trial, 1915, where the protagonist, Joseph K., wakes up one day to find himself arrested for an unspecified crime. But here's the twist: he never learns what crime he's being accused of. The novel's central theme is alienation, a feeling of being disconnected from the world around you. Joseph K. goes through a series of bureaucratic and surreal experiences, all while never fully understanding the system or the reasons behind his arrest. The people he encounters are strange, and the rules of the system are arbitrary and absurd. This sense of alienation mirrors the way we often feel in modern life, like we're just going through the motions without fully understanding why or how things work. Kafka's portrayal of alienation speaks to the deep frustration and confusion that many people experience in society. We're often judged by systems that seem indifferent to our personal experiences, and we struggle to find meaning in a world that feels chaotic and disconnected. The legal system in The Trial is an extreme example, but it reflects the real feelings of helplessness many people experience when they're caught in the grind of bureaucracy, work, or social expectations. So, the next time you feel alienated or disconnected, remember that Kafka's characters are not alone in their confusion. We all face moments where we feel like strangers in our own lives. How do you cope with these moments of alienation? Do you confront them, or do you just continue to muddle through? Campbell on every story ever. Think about the most iconic stories you know. Whether it's Frodo's journey to Mordor, Simba's rise to the throne, or the spiritual quests of Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad, there's a common thread running through them all. These stories, spanning cultures and centuries, follow the same basic structure, one that was famously laid out by Joseph Campbell in his groundbreaking book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, 1949. Campbell, an American mythologist, examined the stories of heroes from ancient myths to modern-day epics and found a striking pattern. All of them follow a three-stage journey. First comes separation. The hero is called away from their ordinary world. This could be a wizard's summons or a tragedy, like the death of Luke Skywalker's family, that propels them out of their comfortable life. It's a departure from the norm, often initiated by a force greater than the hero themselves. The second stage, initiation, is where the real adventure begins. The hero faces trials, confronts danger, and grapples with their own limitations. Along the way, they may encounter supernatural help or a moment of enlightenment. Think of the moment Frodo realizes the true weight of his responsibility, or when Luke Skywalker embraces the Force. This stage transforms the hero, either by gaining knowledge, overcoming fears, or mastering new powers. Finally, there's the return. This is the moment the hero comes back, often to their home or community, but forever changed. They now possess the wisdom or power to lead or teach others. It's the final resolution of their journey, like Frodo returning to the Shire, not quite the same, but with a deeper understanding of the world around him. Campbell's idea that every hero's journey follows this three-stage structure speaks to something universal in us all. We all face separations, endure trials, and return transformed, even in our own lives. We may not face dragons or dark lords, but we encounter challenges that change us. Think about your own life. What's the call to adventure that you're waiting for? What trials are you undergoing, and what wisdom might you gain from them? How might you return transformed? Huxley on the Brave New World. Imagine a world where there's no suffering, no pain, and no struggle. a place where people are always happy and nothing ever feels difficult. Does it sound too good to be true? Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, 1932, paints this kind of society, a world where comfort is the highest priority and individuality is sacrificed for the sake of constant happiness. But as Huxley shows, this perfect world comes at a cost. In Huxley's dystopian vision, the people of Brave New World are controlled by pleasure. When they feel any discomfort, they simply take soma, a drug that instantly relieves them of any negative emotions. There's no real pain, no real suffering, just a constant cycle of distractions and superficial pleasures. In this world, people are conditioned to consume, to have casual sex without attachment, and to avoid anything that might lead to deeper, more meaningful experiences. On the surface, it sounds ideal. Who wouldn't want to live in a world where there's no pain or hardship? But as Huxley warns, this kind of world leads to emptiness. People are disconnected from their true selves, unable to experience love, creativity, or real human connection. Society becomes a place where everything is sanitized and predictable, where individuals are nothing more than cogs in the machine of consumerism. Huxley's vision is more relevant than ever. With our addiction to smartphones, social media, and instant gratification, it's easy to see how we've created our own version of Brave New World. We numb ourselves with entertainment and distractions, avoiding the discomfort of real reflection and growth. But at what cost? Are we losing touch with what truly makes us human? Is the pursuit of happiness through materialism and pleasure worth the loss of depth, meaning, and connection? So, which world would you choose? The one full of struggle, growth, and pain, or the one of easy pleasure, comfort, and control? Huxley's novel challenges us to think deeply about the kind of society we want to live in, and whether the price of happiness is worth paying. Beckett on Waiting Around. What do we do when we're waiting for something, whether it's a life-changing event or just the next few minutes to pass? Do we find ways to pass the time, occupy our minds, and keep ourselves entertained? Or do we sit in that uncomfortable stillness, unsure of how to deal with the wait? This theme of waiting and the existential absurdity of life is at the heart of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, 1953, a play that explores the meaningless routine of human existence through two characters, Vladimir and Estragon, who wait endlessly for a figure named Godot. The play, famously described as a play in which nothing happens twice, is about the act of waiting for something that never arrives. Vladimir and Estragon pass the time with absurd conversations, physical comedy, and existential reflection. They do everything they can to keep themselves occupied, arguing, reminiscing, and even trying to leave, but always coming back to the same spot, waiting for Godot, who never appears. The deeper message of the play is clear. Life often feels like a series of waiting periods where we're just passing time, waiting for meaning or direction. The search for something greater, a purpose, a revelation, a change often feels like an endless waiting game. But what happens when we realize that Godot might never arrive? In our own lives, how much of our time is spent waiting for something to change, for an epiphany, or for external circumstances to align? What do we do in the meantime? Beckett's Waiting for Godot asks us to reflect on the futility and absurdity of our own lives, but also on the ways we fill our time. Life may not always offer clear answers, but it does offer moments of connection, reflection, and experience. Are you waiting for your Godot? What are you doing in the meantime? Beckett's play challenges us to find meaning in the waiting itself. Perhaps it's in the journey, not the destination. Orwell on Doublethink. Do you ever catch yourself believing two contradictory things at the same time? It might sound like a paradox, but George Orwell's 1984-1949 introduces us to the idea of doublethink, a concept that describes the ability to hold two opposing beliefs simultaneously and accept them both as true. In Orwell's dystopian world, the government of Oceania uses doublethink to control the minds of its citizens, forcing them to accept contradictory facts without question. In 1984, the party controls reality itself. Through institutions like the Ministry of Truth, the party rewrites history, erases inconvenient facts, and manipulates the past to suit its current needs. Citizens are taught to believe that war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. These slogans represent the essence of doublethink, the acceptance of two contradictory ideas at once. To the citizens of Oceania, these contradictions are not problems. They are simply truths that must be accepted without question. But doublethink isn't just a concept for fictional totalitarian regimes. In our own world, it's easy to see how contradictory beliefs can shape our perceptions of reality. We might argue for freedom while simultaneously supporting systems that restrict it. We might claim to value truth, yet fall for fake news and misinformation. Orwell's 1984 shows us how powerful language and propaganda can be in shaping our beliefs and controlling our minds. So, how do you navigate a world full of doublethink? Are there areas in your own life where you accept contradictions without even realizing it? Orwell's warning is clear. Without objective truth, we risk being manipulated into believing anything. The challenge is to stay aware of the truths we take for granted and to question the narratives we're told. Kafka on alienation. Have you ever felt like you're out of place, like the world around you doesn't quite make sense? This feeling of alienation, of being disconnected from reality, is at the core of Franz Kafka's novel The Trial, 1915. In the story, the protagonist, Joseph K., wakes up one day to find himself arrested for an unknown crime, and throughout the novel, he never discovers what he's being accused of. He's thrust into a strange, bureaucratic world where nothing seems to make sense, and he's constantly judged by a faceless, impersonal system. Kafka's The Trial explores the theme of alienation in a world that feels absurd and chaotic. The protagonist's experience mirrors the existential feeling of being a stranger in our own lives. In The Trial, Joseph K. is caught in a surreal world of contradictory rules and unexplainable events, where he feels powerless and lost. The legal system, much like society itself, seems arbitrary and nonsensical. This sense of alienation is something many of us can relate to. Have you ever felt out of place in a situation? Like you're playing a game without knowing the rules? Kafka's portrayal of alienation speaks to the confusion, frustration, and absurdity that often permeate our lives. It reflects the human experience of navigating a world that often feels unpredictable and unmanageable. What do you do when you feel alienated? How do you cope with the feeling of being out of sync with the world around you? Kafka's The Trial doesn't offer any easy answers, but it encourages us to reflect on the absurdity of life and our place within it. Are we all just playing along, trying to make sense of a world that doesn't make sense? Wittgenstein on language games. Have you ever had a special word or phrase that only you and your closest friends or family understand? Maybe you've given your remote control a nickname or used an inside joke that only those in your inner circle get. Ludwig Wittgenstein, the Austrian-British philosopher, believed that these little quirks in how we use language reveal a lot about the way we communicate. He referred to these as language games, and his exploration of them helps us understand the deeper, often hidden, rules that govern how words work in society. Wittgenstein argued that words don't just have one fixed meaning, instead, their meaning is defined by the specific context in which they are used. Imagine trying to explain a word like sick. For most people, it means being unwell, but for a younger generation, it might mean something completely different, cool or awesome. The meaning of a word, Wittgenstein suggested, is shaped by the form of life it belongs to. So, the way we understand and use words is deeply influenced by the social, cultural, and personal contexts we find ourselves in. There's no such thing as a private language. For communication to work, we all have to agree on what words mean within our group or society. Take, for example, the differences between American and British English. Words like pants, or biscuit mean completely different things depending on where you are. Or think about how polite language in Japan changes based on the relationship between speakers. The structure of language is like a game, with rules that are learned and followed through our interactions with others. This insight forces us to reflect on how we use language daily. Are we aware of how the meanings of words shift depending on context? And when learning a new language, how can we navigate these nuances? So next time you speak with someone, think about the language game you're playing. What's the meaning of the words you use, and how is it shaped by the context in which you're communicating? Structuralism on binaries. Let's play a quick game of word association. Think of these words and what immediately comes to mind. Good. Up. Cat. Happy. What do you feel? Your brain likely drew some binary oppositions. In structuralist theory, these opposites help to give meaning to the words we use. Words like good only make sense when we also understand bad, and up gets its meaning through its contrast with down. This concept comes from the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, who argued that many concepts in language derive their meaning not from what they are, but from what they are not. So good and evil aren't just opposites, they are interdependent. Understanding one requires understanding the other. This binary structure runs deep in our language and culture, shaping everything from our moral judgments to the way we categorize things. Interestingly, these binaries don't always have clear opposites. For example, cat and dog might seem opposite, but they're not. The same goes for many other words that don't technically contradict each other. But the real kicker here is how cultural contexts influence these opposites. For instance, the word man has historically been seen as the default in many cultures, making woman the anomaly or the other. This idea is explored in Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex, where she argues that society has often positioned women as secondary just by defining them in contrast to men. What's powerful about structuralism is its ability to shed light on the ways these binaries shape our worldview. They can reinforce stereotypes, biases, and prejudices, often without us even realizing it. How often do you encounter these cultural binaries in your own thinking? And more importantly, how can we challenge them? Understanding structuralism helps us reflect on how language isn't just a tool for communication, it's a powerful force that shapes our perceptions and interactions. Bacon on the scientific method. Imagine two young children, Fred and Alan, arguing over a simple point. Do badgers come out only at night? Fred is convinced he's right and spots badgers at night, while Alan thinks he saw one during the day but isn't so sure. Instead of fighting, they come up with an experiment. Fred will count the badgers he sees at night, and Alan will count the ones he sees during the day. At the end of the week, they compare their findings. Fred saw 8 and Alan only saw 1, but he acknowledges it could have been a dog. This little experiment is a perfect example of what the philosopher Francis Bacon would have been proud of: the scientific method in action. Bacon, who lived in a time when superstition and religious zeal dominated thought, argued that knowledge should be based on observation and evidence, not assumptions or outdated beliefs. This method, now called the Baconian method, involves forming a hypothesis based on observable facts, gathering more data to test the hypothesis, and then rejecting any ideas that don't fit with the data. In many ways, Bacon was the pioneer of the modern scientific approach. By stressing the importance of empirical observation and systematic inquiry, he laid the groundwork for the rigorous scientific methods that have led to monumental advancements in medicine, technology, and our understanding of the world. But Bacon's method wasn't without its flaws. While his idea of using evidence to prove hypotheses was revolutionary, it didn't account for the complexities we now face in science, such as the problem of induction, where we can never be absolutely sure a hypothesis will hold true in every instance. Still, Bacon's insistence on evidence-based knowledge set the foundation for the scientific revolution. So, the next time you find yourself making a claim, whether it's about badgers or anything else, think about Bacon's method. Are you using evidence or just repeating what you've been told? Kuhn on paradigm shifts. Picture this, you're living in a time when everyone believes the Earth is the center of the universe. But then along comes a scientist like Copernicus who turns everything on its head and shows that the sun, not the Earth, is the center of the universe. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, and the resistance from those who held on tightly to the old view. This is a paradigm shift, a term coined by philosopher Thomas Kuhn to describe those moments when a revolutionary idea shakes the very foundations of accepted knowledge. In his influential work, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, Kuhn argued that science doesn't progress in a straight line, but rather through these dramatic shifts in thinking. Paradigm shifts happen when the existing framework or paradigm of knowledge can no longer explain certain anomalies. Eventually, these anomalies build up and force a new paradigm to emerge. Think about how Darwin's theory of evolution upended centuries of religiously accepted ideas about creation. Kuhn also pointed out that scientists, like everyone else, can be stubbornly resistant to change. They are often so entrenched in the prevailing paradigm that they dismiss new ideas as impractical or even heretical. It's only when enough evidence accumulates that the old paradigm is replaced and a new one takes its place. This is what happened with the shift from Newtonian physics to Einstein's theory of relativity, or from the belief in a flat Earth to our current understanding of a spherical Earth. Kuhn's idea doesn't just apply to science, it's relevant to any area of life where knowledge and ideas evolve. Political systems, social norms, and cultural beliefs can all undergo paradigm shifts. So, when you challenge conventional wisdom or encounter resistance to new ideas, remember, you may be witnessing or even contributing to a paradigm shift. Heidegger on what technology does to us. Technology is everywhere. It's how we communicate, travel, work, and entertain ourselves. It has fundamentally changed the way we experience life. But has it changed us for the better? The German philosopher Martin Heidegger, who wrote extensively on technology, believed that it has done more harm than good. Heidegger argued that we've become so obsessed with technology that we've lost our connection to the natural world. Heidegger used the term gestal, translated as enframing, to describe how technology shapes our view of the world. Instead of seeing nature as something we coexist with, we view it as a resource to be exploited. Rivers, forests, mountains, they're all seen as standing reserves, ready to be used at our will. This shift in perspective, Heidegger argued, has alienated us from the very essence of life. We no longer appreciate nature for its beauty or mystery. We only see it for what it can provide. Heidegger believed that this utilitarian view of the world has led to a society that is increasingly disconnected from itself. We've created machines to serve us, but in doing so, we've become slaves to the very machines we created. Whether it's our smartphones, computers, or cars, we've allowed technology to define our existence. As Heidegger put it, everywhere we remain unfree and chained to technology. In today's world, this is more relevant than ever. We are constantly connected, constantly on. But are we really living? Or are we just reacting to the latest notification, the next task on our to-do list? Heidegger challenges us to reflect on how we use technology. Are we using it to enhance our lives, or has it become a force that controls us? Heraclitus on the changing self. Imagine meeting your 10-year-old self. What would you talk about? How would you interact? Would you even recognize the person you were? And what about when you're 80? What will have changed, and what will you want to have changed about yourself? This process of self-transformation over time is at the heart of one of the most intriguing philosophical puzzles, personal identity. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus is famously known for saying, "You cannot step into the same river twice," highlighting the constant state of flux in the world. This extends to the self. Just as rivers flow and change, so do we. Our bodies, our minds, and our lives evolve, but what remains constant? Heraclitus' ship of Theseus thought experiment helps to illustrate this paradox. Theseus, a legendary figure, goes to battle with his ship. Over time, pieces of the ship get damaged and replaced. Eventually, no part of the original ship remains. The question arises, is it still the same ship? This paradox is mirrored in our own experience. Our bodies are in a constant state of regeneration, with cells dying and being replaced at a rapid pace. In a year, most of our physical cells are replaced, so is the person you are today truly the same as the person you were last year? If you define yourself by your memories, the question of continuity becomes murky. Memories can fade or be distorted. Likewise, relationships, interests, and even our physical appearances shift over time. Heraclitus challenges us to think about what makes us who we are when so much of us is in perpetual transformation. Is it our thoughts, our soul, or something else entirely? As you ponder these questions, consider how you relate to the idea of a consistent self. What connects your past to your present, and how will the future alter that connection? What is the immortal essence that remains unchanged within you? Libet on watching yourself behave. Take a moment to perform a small experiment. Place your hand flat on the table, and when you're ready, lift it. Now, reflect on your choice to lift your hand. Why did you pick the particular moment? What caused your decision to act, and how did it manifest in your body's movements? This seemingly simple act actually raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and free will. The American neuroscientist Benjamin Libet's experiments in the 1980s tested the timing of conscious awareness in relation to physical action. Libet's research revealed that the brain initiates an action before we are consciously aware of it. Specifically, the readiness potential in the brain, the neurological activity that precedes any voluntary action, occurs about 350 milliseconds before you consciously decide to move. This discovery challenges our common understanding of free will. If the brain decides to move our hand before we are even aware of it, can we truly say we have control over our actions? Is our conscious mind merely watching the body act like a passive observer? Libet's work has sparked debates about the role of consciousness in decision-making. Are we in charge of our actions? Or is our consciousness simply an after-the-fact observer of processes already set in motion by the brain? The idea that our brain acts without our conscious involvement undermines the traditional concept of free will, suggesting that many of our decisions are the result of unconscious processes rather than conscious control. Next time you make a choice, whether to lift a hand, make a purchase, or speak to someone, remember that your brain might have already made that decision before you consciously realize it. The question is, if we aren't the initiators of our own actions, who or what is? Popper on pseudoscience. We live in an age where we are constantly bombarded with claims, theories, and ideologies. From the latest health fad to political conspiracy theories, it can be challenging to separate truth from fiction. How can we tell when a claim is truly scientific or just pseudoscience masquerading as knowledge? Karl Popper, a 20th century philosopher, offered a solution with his concept of falsifiability. For Popper, the key difference between science and pseudoscience lies in the ability to disprove a theory. A theory is scientific only if it can, in principle, be proven false by evidence. This is known as falsification. Popper argued that for a theory to be meaningful, it must be testable and capable of being disproven. A true scientific theory is open to scrutiny and can withstand attempts to falsify it. On the other hand, pseudoscience is characterized by theories that cannot be disproven, no matter the evidence. For example, if a theory is presented with contradictory evidence and the response is always, well, it hasn't been done properly yet, then it's no longer a scientific theory. It's pseudoscience. Popper's idea helped to clarify the distinction between what is and isn't science, and his ideas have shaped the modern scientific method. By asking the simple question, what would prove this theory false, we can begin to see whether a claim stands up to rational scrutiny or falls into the realm of quackery. The next time you encounter a bold claim, whether it's about health, the environment, or politics, ask yourself, could this claim be disproven? If not, perhaps it's time to take a step back and question its validity. Turing on robots versus humans. In 1950, Alan Turing proposed one of the most famous thought experiments in the history of artificial intelligence, the Turing test. His goal was to explore whether machines could think or be conscious like humans. Imagine having a conversation with someone via text and you can't tell whether you're speaking with a human or a machine. If you can't differentiate between the two, then, according to Turing, the machine has passed the test of thinking. Turing's vision of artificial intelligence raises deep questions about consciousness and the nature of being. If a machine can mimic human behavior so perfectly that we can't tell the difference, does that mean the machine is truly conscious? Or is it just a clever simulation? What does it mean to think or to be aware? This thought experiment doesn't just apply to robots, it challenges us to think about the nature of human consciousness. If we can't reliably distinguish between a human and a machine based on behavior, then what really sets us apart? Is there something inherently special about human consciousness? Or is it just a complex series of processes that could, in theory, be replicated by a machine? Turing's ideas invite us to rethink our assumptions about what it means to be human. If machines can pass for humans in conversation, then how do we define consciousness? The boundary between humans and machines is becoming increasingly blurred, and Turing's test is a useful tool for reflecting on the nature of mind, intelligence, and what it truly means to be alive. Asimov on the laws of robotics. As technology advances, the idea of sentient robots becomes less science fiction and more a potential reality. If robots were to gain consciousness, we would need to create ethical guidelines to ensure they behave in ways that are beneficial to humanity. This is exactly what Isaac Asimov tackled in his famous works on robotics. In his science fiction, Asimov proposed 3 fundamental laws for robots to follow. 1. A robot may not harm a human or, through inaction, allow a human to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. These laws were designed to ensure that robots would serve humanity without causing harm. However, Asimov's stories often explored the complexities and contradictions that arise from these seemingly simple rules. For instance, what happens when the first law is violated by indirect consequences or when a robot must choose between saving one person or many? These moral dilemmas raise important questions about the role of artificial intelligence in our society. As we move closer to creating robots with advanced capabilities, Asimov's laws offer a starting point for thinking about the ethical challenges we face. How do we ensure that machines, which may one day have the ability to make decisions, act in ways that are aligned with human values? As technology continues to evolve, we must consider the moral framework within which we design and interact with intelligent machines.